Welcome to Liesel's Artistic Studio. I'm so glad you're joining me today because I am super excited to show you how you can draw this pretty rose today so that next week we can paint it with watercolors. You definitely don't want to miss next week's tutorial, so make sure you subscribe. Also, for a really quick recap, just a few days ago I did a tutorial on how to use watercolor brush pens to paint a fish, but it wasn't on a day that I normally put out tutorials, so just in case you missed this, it's worth going back to watch. We are also getting close to Valentine's Day, and if you are wanting to paint something special for the occasion, check out this Valentine wreath tutorial. This is my personal favorite Valentine tutorial I've done to date, so I hope you'll take a look. All right, let's get started on our rose drawing. Supplies are pretty simple today. I have a piece of 8x10 watercolor paper to draw my flower on because I do intend to paint it later. But if you just want a pretty drawing, sketch paper or thick cardstock will be just fine. I've also taped my paper down to keep it from moving around during this tutorial, but that is an optional step for you. Over here to my right, I have a rose picture reference that I took a long time ago. It didn't print out super great, but I think it's good enough for what we need today. Then I have a pencil here with a good eraser so that if I make a mistake while I'm drawing, it will be easy to fix. All right, it's time to start drawing. I'm going to begin with the center part of the rose here in the upper right corner of the page. Then I will work my way outward to the larger petals. Make the first little shape for the very center of the flower. It doesn't really matter what this looks like for you. It really is just a starting point. Then start surrounding that shape with petals of different sizes and shapes. This is really kind of the key to this rose. What size of petals are you creating? They usually tend to get larger as you move away from the center. And what is the shape of that individual petal? Sometimes it helps to look at just one petal at a time rather than being overwhelmed with the flower as a whole. These petals are all sort of going to connect and swirl around each other to make one big flower in the end. Okay, so I thought it would be fun today as we sit here drawing to share with you some of my favorite quotes from one of my favorite artists, Bob Ross. The first one goes something like this. Anything that you try and don't succeed, if you learn from it, it's not a failure. So there you have it, some great advice. When the center area is done, then we're going to start drawing petals that can cup and surround that center. This is the point where the petals will start to get larger and also where the petals will start to flare and point outwards instead of tight and close into the center. You'll notice too that a lot of the petal edges are uneven or a little ripply, so having squiggly lines on your petal edges will help them look more organic and realistic. All right, it's time for another Bob Ross moment. So here we go. Talent is pursued interest. Anything you're willing to practice, you can do. I love that, and this doesn't just apply to artwork. This is for anything. Also, if you intend to shade or color this flower in later, start to think about where the dark or the light areas will be. Where is there overlapping petals that might cause some shadow? Where is the light hitting? Now, my rose doesn't look exactly like my reference picture, and that's okay. The picture is just a guide, and same for you. If you are following along with me, your flower is probably going to look a lot different than mine, and that's okay too. This is what makes artwork so fun. It is naturally individualized by you, your style, your preferences, so feel free to change or create your flower in any way you want. All right, I think that looks pretty good for the head of my rose, so let's move on now to the stem and the leaves. There's nothing too special about drawing the stem. I'm choosing to angle mine downward to the left side of the page slightly, and I'm also not trying to make smooth, perfect lines. As I said before, sometimes it's the bumps and imperfections that make it look more organic and realistic. However, I am trying to keep it pretty similar in width most of the way down until the very end, and then I'll flare it out just a little. For the leaves, I'll draw the stem for the leaves first and then add 3 leaves to it. The leaves are a little more fat, a little more round shaped, with some jagged peaks along the edges. You'll see here that I am going to have a leaf or two that will disappear behind the flower head. Then when you're ready, erase any lines to connect the leaves to the branch or the branch to the stem. Then draw a similar branch of leaves on the other side. Okay, it's been a little bit since our last Bob Ross moment, so here's another one, and I have to say I think this is one of my favorites. They say everything looks better with odd numbers of things, but sometimes I put even numbers just to upset the critics. Okay, so this one, my husband will love this one because he is an even number guy. We've definitely had our little tiffs over even and odd numbers of things. I'm an odd number person, he's an even number person. Anyway, kind of funny. Now that the leaves are done, the only thing left to add to this drawing is some thin vein lines to the leaves. Okay, last Bob Ross quote for the day, and this is a pretty good one. So he loves painting trees, you know, so there he is painting his trees, and he paints a crooked one. Then he goes, "That's a crooked tree. We'll send him to Washington." Now you have a pretty rose drawing that you can shade with a pencil, you can color it with colored pencils or water brush pens, or you can paint it. Whatever you decide to do with your rose, I'm sure it will turn out lovely. If you'd like to paint along with me, join me next Thursday. And if you enjoyed this tutorial, please consider subscribing to my channel so I can continue to help you discover your artistic side.